All right, so I think we're going to get started now, and if anyone else joins, they can obviously just join in. We're going to start with introductions, so I'll introduce myself. My name's Emily. I'm going to be moderating today. I use she, series pronouns. I'm the class of 2021, so I'm a senior now, coming to a close on my own time at BC. I am a finance and film studies major, and my hometown is Long Island, New York. I am also a member of the Pulse Council, as well as the AHANA Outreach Committee here at BC, and I've previously been involved with the Organization of Latin American Affairs, as well as UGBC. And now I'm going to hand it over to panelists if they want to start introducing themselves. So Adam, if you want to start.
Perfect. So Adam Whitfield, CSOM class of 2007. Can't believe it's been that long. He, him, his pronouns. I grew up in Brookline, Massachusetts, so right next door, local boy, and currently working right now as Director of Customer Success at a company called ConnectRN. And ConnectRN is essentially Uber, but for nurses. That's the easiest way to describe it. That's how I describe it to my parents. But we provide opportunities for clinicians of all types to work at long-term care facilities as of right now, with plans of expanding to other care settings in the next 6 to 12 months. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you're all good. Mike, if we can hand it over to you, have you introduce yourself?
Got it. Hey, everyone. My name is Michael Sagai, he, him, his pronouns. I'm a recent graduate, 2020, Morrissey College of Arts and Sciences. I study political science and African diaspora studies. Right now, I'm based in my hometown of Washington, D.C. I am an economic development researcher at a nonprofit called Downtown DC BID, which works to improve the business and retail space for the downtown area in DC. And one, work with residents, but also city government to ensure that the economy is still vibrant in DC, especially right now with the pandemic.
Hi, everybody. My name is Eddie Manaya, pronouns he, him, his. I'm also a class of 2020. During BC, I majored in biology on the pre-med track. And now I am completing a master's in medical science at Boston University. And I'm actually gonna apply to medical school this upcoming cycle. So it's a pleasure to be here.
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Angela Clark. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am a graduate of 1996, a really long time ago. But I also got my master's degree at BC, so really 98. And so now I am a vice president, diversity and inclusion leader at Fidelity Investments, where I've been for a little over 23 years. And I also am an adjunct professor at Boston College. I teach a multicultural studies course. And I am really excited to be here with all of you. And I'm going to turn it over to Lisa. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa Vu. I identify as she and her, and I'm class of 2017. I studied sociology. I now work at Oracle for the last close to 4 years. I am in field sales.
Awesome. Well, now that you all know a little bit about us, I'll explain how we're going to be operating this webinar today. So we have a Q&A function enabled. So if you have any questions, we would love for you to put them down there, and we will try to answer as many as possible. And hopefully we can start there if anyone has any questions, but if not, I'll just start us off in the meantime. So for anyone it applies to, both during your time at BC as a student and after graduation, how has the Boston College Alumni Network impacted your career path?
I mean, I can start. I'll start. So let me just say, I'm biased because I absolutely love Boston College. I love everything about Boston College. So when I think about the alumni for me, so I also played basketball. So what you can't tell by looking on the screen is I'm almost 6 feet tall. I think Aiden knows this, but no one else can tell. And so the Alumni Network has done everything for me. When I was there at Boston College, they helped me get into grad school, and I really didn't pay a whole lot. Now the alumni team and just some of my friends who still work at Boston College helped me get back to BC and teach multicultural studies And I'd say even being a Fidelity person, which I've been for a long time, the alumni connection I have at Fidelity Investments with regards to Boston College is strong. There are a lot of us at Fidelity, and I'd say we run deep, so to speak, at Fidelity. So I can't thank my friends at Boston College for giving me and doing all they've done for me to help me succeed. I know I can always reach out to my friends at Boston College who are still there for support. And so I really appreciate what they've done for me. I can also say I can also reach out to a lot of my friends who are now working at Fidelity Investments, who are alumni of Boston College for additional support as well. And so I really appreciate all that they have done for me. I feel like we are, in my mind, again, just my thought, we're really a tight family. Regardless of whether I know, I have a direct or indirect connection with someone that went to Boston College, I feel like we're all one big family.
I can add, I echo Angela's sentiments. I've been at 6 different companies over my career to date, and I've encountered, I think, at least one BC person. And there's almost like you just smile, right? When you hear, oh, you're also BC, you talk about where'd you live freshman year, and you go through all those questions. And then once you get past that, also biased, but the work experiences I've had with these individuals has been fantastic. In particular, a company that I was at 3 jobs ago, I worked with another BC alum on an initiative to help us drive successful onboarding for our customers. And it was just amazing. We sprinkled like BC tidbits throughout our presentation to the company of our project, but the network is strong. The other like bullet that I would provide is I can't think of a time where I've reached out to somebody from BC, from the network, cold and not gotten a response. So that in and of itself, I think speaks for the power of the network.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that, as a current student, I'm in the Carroll School of Management. For me, the alumni network through CSOM and just through Boston College as a whole has really been such an invaluable asset to get from my Boston College experience. Eagle Link is a really valuable resource that we all use. So I know personally, especially my sophomore year, I was taking a lot of info chats with alumni. They also sometimes offer practice interviews and help with interview prep. So they're always really available. And I've always just had an amazing experience with the network. And my current post-grad employment, which is with Gallo Winery, I was interviewed multiple times by BC alums. So yeah, definitely runs deep, I think, in a lot of ways. So moving on to another question. I see the question in the Q&A, Joseph, but we are going to save that to the end just because, like you said, it might be a little better suited for then. So just moving on for now with some of our questions until we get more in the chat. Oftentimes we enter college as a first-year student with a certain idea of what we think we will do upon graduation. Sometimes this works out. However, most of the time this changes. If you can remember, what did you want to do as a first-year student, and how did that change over the course of your college career?
I can start. So I actually declared bio pre-med. I did that first semester. I went into that major mostly because my whole family was in like kinesiology, biochemistry. All my sister had studied sciences, and that's really, I would say, all I knew. So I declared that. I failed my chemistry class first semester, and I said to myself, all right, like this is not for me. I need to figure it out. And so second semester of my freshman year, I took like random intro classes, intro to sociology, intro to psychology. I just took basically, I took a business class, like I took just random classes and to really figure out what I wanted to study. I ended up studying sociology. I never thought about studying sociology. I genuinely enjoy sociology, but never thought about majoring in it. But junior year came and I said, okay, what am I going to do with a sociology degree? Do I want to continue in research? Do I want to go the PhD master route? Or, but that wasn't where I wanted to go. And when I assessed my skill sets, I know that I was generally good at connecting with people, sales. And so I entered a GE healthcare competition, in a sales competition. And from there, I knew that I could probably go into sales. So I actually reached out to BC alum, and he had already been at Oracle. And so I asked him, how was his experience? So then he helped me actually prep me for the interview at Oracle. And then I was offered a job before I graduated senior year. And then I moved to LA. And then I basically was there for 4 years. Now I'm actually back in Boston. I'm going to get my MBA at BC.
To add on what Lisa said, I think that BC does a really good job at helping you find your passion. At BC, they make you take a whole core curriculum. So no matter what your major is, you take classes. You have to take a certain amount of history courses, certain amount of science courses, math courses, arts, all over. So when I first got to BC, I entered as bio pre-med. But at first, I really struggled a lot. Like I failed out of, I withdrew from my first ever bio class at BC because I was en route to failing it basically after the first 3 exams. Got C's in general chemistry. So I went through, really, difficult moments that could have deterred me. But the fact that I was able to take classes in a whole bunch of different areas, it allowed me to see that, no matter how things were going in pre-med, like I knew that, I have a passion for medicine. And I think that allowed me to even further solidify my passion. So I continued on with the pre-med course. I retook the class the second time, got an A- luckily. And so, years later, here I am. So.
Yeah, I'll go off that as well. Like similar to like Lisa and Eddie, I also failed a class that really quickly made me go into a different direction with Econ 101 was not for me. It's kind of ironic that I'm doing Econ now, post-grad, but that really course pushed me away from just doing things because other people were telling me to do them. I think when you get into Boston College, a lot is put on you, and a lot of courses are made available through the core curriculum, and you're kind of just given a chance to explore and float through it. And one of the courses that was really formational for me was Black intimacy and intersectionality with Professor Sean McGuffey in sociology and Professor Rhonda Frederick in English. And so it was an interdisciplinary course that really made me consider how our race, gender, class inform how you go about the world, but also how you interact with others. And this course really pushed me, along with a lot of experiences at Boston College that were hate crimes, stuff going on in the world, made me look into how can I play a role in creating a more just and safe and equitable society. And that led me to my major of African diaspora studies that focused on Black people and Black history, which was just something that I wanted to focus on. And I found once I found my passion in that just kept me moving to look at institutions with political science. And now what I'm doing right now, playing a key role in understanding the DC economy and how racial inequities are not only exacerbated by the pandemic, but how can we build back better? And yeah, so I think all of those experiences informed through my classes mainly, but informed why I studied what and how I came to be now.
I can share. I'd say just answering your question directly. When I first got to Boston College a really long time ago, I left BC in my senior year. I thought I was going, I started out my freshman year thinking I was going to go to law school. And so I was you have to take all your core curriculum, and I took a bunch of law courses. Political science was my major undergrad. And then I quickly said, I don't want to be a lawyer. This is not something I'm interested in doing. I want to own my own gym, right? I played basketball. I love sports. I still work out often. And then when I was in grad school, I was teaching or coaching at Beaver Country Day School, and I just needed another job. I'm in grad school. I needed to pay. There was only a little bit I had to pay. I needed to pay for school. And so I needed a second job. And so someone told me that Fidelity Investments was paying $16 an hour. And I thought, oh, you know what? I'm going to try it out. 16 bucks an hour was a lot back then. And so I took the job and I never left. So when I graduated, they moved me to New York. So I worked on Park Ave for a year. I didn't make any money. It sounds glamorous, but I still worked on Park Ave, making no money. I think I made $29.5 my first year. But it was just a fun experience. And I think I just got to be me for a little bit and just do some fun things that I wanted to do that I didn't think I would do on my own, like move to a different state. And so interestingly enough, what I learned, and Emily, I know you didn't ask this question, but I'll tell you anyway. What I learned, people always ask the question, like, what's the most important thing that you should think about when you're thinking about your career? And it sounds so cliche to focus on something that you really love, but it really is to focus on something that you really love. Because if you don't, I mean, you can make money doing anything. Like I can make money. I make a lot of money now. I think I do pretty well, but when I tell you I love the work on diversity and inclusion, Michael, I would love to talk to you offline. I love the work that I do. And so doing something that you're really passionate about, despite what other people tell you, and I think one of you just mentioned that, is really, really important because the money will come. You can really make money doing anything, selling widgets, you can be a billionaire. And so finding your passion is really, really important. And I think BC helped me do that just by allowing me just the freedom just to be out there for a little bit. And so what I started, I mean, I changed my sort of career path several times before I really found what was interesting to me.
I can close it out. Also, I have to mention the Beaver Country Day reference is that's a special one to me. It's actually where I met Aiden, and that's how all of this kicked off. So that's and I went to camp there for a number of years. I also wanted to go to law school. My thing was I wanted to be a sports agent. I went to BC and played football my freshman year and stopped playing after the fact. But that was like part of the grand vision to eventually go to, actually, funny enough, Michael, University of Miami has a strong sports entertainment law program. Like I had charted my path, and then I had conversations with lawyers, and every lawyer I talked to, including Aiden's father, was like, nah, I don't know if you want to go to law school. And so that's and that's why I went a different path. What I did know is that I loved building things, and I loved the process. And that was kind of in all facets of life, whether you're talking about working out, whether you're talking about Legos, whether you're talking about video games. I love the process of starting from nothing and then working hard and getting to, point A, point B, point C. And it just so happens that the startup world was the right space for me. And my first gig out of school, I think, again, to Andrew's point, passionate about music, passionate about sports, passionate about philanthropy. I could not have been more fortunate to find a startup that merged all three. And I worked for free. I was babysitting Aiden and his brother Jonah. I was working at a bar. And I was working in the startup, and it eventually led to a full-time job. But if you had asked me freshman year, did I think that I'd be working at a startup company and that I'd be in this space essentially for the past 13, 14 years, I would not have believed you.
Thank you all so much for those really honest answers. They were super insightful for me. So I hope the attendees all got something out of that as well. Just a reminder to attendees, if you didn't catch it at the beginning, we do have a Q&A function enabled. So at any point, if you want to ask a question, feel free to drop it in there. We'll be happy to address as many as possible. So if you want to bring those in the meantime, looking back on your BC experience, what are some ways that you would like to see BC grow as an institution?
So selfishly, I'll talk about diversity and inclusion just because it's such a big part of who I am. And maybe I'll lump BC together just with other institutions. Overall, I just think we need to do a better job in being more transparent, and do a better job just addressing the systemic racism and the challenges that we have in this country. And I know that BCE allows students to have a voice, but I would also like them, BCE, the administrators, to lean in and be vulnerable to this topic as well, and do a better job in this space. It's really, really important. I think what I love about BC and a lot of institutions is, or just in terms of young people in general, are even all of you on this call, you do a really good job using your voices, right? I would say this generation, so much more so than I ever was, and I was probably just nervous to do it. You use your voices to make changes. And how do we, the older generations, and how do institutions like Boston College really lean in and be vulnerable to help you? And I think that we need to stop being afraid. I think that we need to lean in and acknowledge the systemic racism that we are all a part of so that we can do better. Because until you acknowledge that there is a problem, you can't make changes in that space. And so I would suggest that Boston College, as well as other institutions, lean in and just do more to support each other in this space. And whether that means who you allow in, and I don't really know a whole lot about what it looks like when you're actually allowing people to come into the system. I don't know what that whole process looks like. I'm not familiar with it. But how do we ensure that we have more equality in selecting students to attend Boston College? What does that look like? Because everything, in my mind, we probably need to blow up a lot of the systems that we have today. Most of the systems we have today are layered in biases, either conscious or unconscious biases. And how do we kind of blow up a lot of the systems that we have in place today and make new ones so that we all thrive?
Just to echo what Angela said, I would say, I've been a part of BAIC practically my 4 years, and also I was very close to my advisor Inez, who was the previous director before Father Michael. I think that I see a lot of issues within student affairs, resources for students, and that stems from, I would say, institutional racism. And there are so many systems in place, like Angela said, that aren't being dismantled. And I think that there are faculty and students who are trying to make those changes. But the common, I would say, the echoes that I've been hearing is that it's really hard to make those changes because the people who are actually in power or who are making the decisions, whether that's our, whoever within student affairs, aren't allowing these changes. And I've seen it, again and again in examples. And so that's really hard for me as an alumni and as a student, previous students who've been very involved on campus. And that's still going on today. And so that's, I would say, is something that I hope to see changes within BC.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I do think that BC can do a better job at providing more resources to students of color and/or from low-income backgrounds. Just like a personal story, like when I withdrew from the class that I had to withdraw from freshman year, I applied for AHANA tuition remission, and which is basically they pay for you to take a summer class to basically remediate the class we withdrew from. And they also pay your housing. But the way it works, because the amount of money is limited, there's a ranking system where seniors get priority and it goes down in priority. So freshmen are the least priority. And I just remember thinking that I was like, why a school that has, $2.5 billion in endowment, like I feel like they can definitely allocate more resources to things like that, like being able to take a summer course. Or I remember, borrowing. There's also the Montserrat House, which is basically they help you a lot with, like buying books for your classes, paying for things like that. And even in that, there are limits to the amount of books you can get. And I just, remember thinking like a school with a lot of privilege and money, I feel like we're still, like, I felt a little bit hindered in a way, because I still had to find the money, to be able to, buy, one last book or two last books. So I definitely think that BC could definitely be able to provide more resources for students, from low income backgrounds and students of color.
I'll go if like that's good. All good, Emily. I think linking what everyone has said together, like I think a lot of issues like that BC like deals or could be better at like are often around like a diffusion responsibility. I think a lot of the onus to whether it be like improving like racial relations on campus or resources for low-income students, the list goes on. A lot of that is falling onto students and faculty to create the spaces to empower the incoming first-year students to highlight an issue that's going on campus. Like right now, over the years, right, folks have been fighting for an LGBTQ plus center on campus, and that has just fallen on like just silence from the administration, right? So I think that there are certain communities on campus that folks have to stand up for, and it's often the students. And until like BC can acknowledge that, hey, like LGBTQ plus students are calling for this, our wider community is calling for this, like there must be a reason, and dedicate resources, time, and efforts to one, just addressing the LGBTQ plus experience on campus, but also building a community space of care and welcome, because folks aren't feeling welcome all the time.
I would say one of the things that I would love to see would be, and there's some of this already in the work that's being done at the Shea Center, but doubling down on the investment in the startup community. There are so many amazing companies, founders, individuals that are working in the startup space. Like Boston has an incredibly vibrant startup community. And I was actually surprised to see how many folks who are part of the community were also members of the BC community. So selfishly, it's something that I try and do. I'm on an executive committee for tech and entrepreneurship. Actually spoke to a class last Tuesday affiliated with the Shea Center. So I would love to see that doubling down, given all the powerful minds, intelligent minds that we have at the school. And then the folks that we have as alum, just continuing to bring them together and be able to see what they can put together as far as a company or business or solving a massive problem. So that is an area where I'd love to see a little bit more on our end.
Yeah, I think just to echo Mike's point specifically is something I think I've seen a lot here in my time at Boston College. And I think, there's two sides to the blade sword. I completely forgot that metaphor in the middle of using it. Analogy. Anyway, so yeah, I think on one hand, I really love the community aspect and the community advocacy aspect of Boston College and the community as a whole. I think in general, personally seeing Mike as a leader was one of the most inspiring and really beautiful things to see throughout 3 years of my experience here. I think he was so dedicated and just a really inspiring leader to watch. And I think he made a lot of change happen, and getting to be a part of that and watch it happen was really great. But I do think that with that being said, a lot of things do fall on the students. And I think it can be easy to forget that your role sometimes at Boston College is just a student and not necessarily to always be pushing for the change you want to see. While that is good, I think at times it could be beneficial to have the administration step in more and take some of the brunt off of the students. But to follow up that, and we will get to some questions in the QA in just a second, I just want to sort of ask this as a follow-up. But following up on the question I just asked, what growth have you seen from the BC as an institution since you've graduated?
I'll jump in quick just because the Shea Center didn't exist when I was on campus. So seeing that the university is moving in that direction, acknowledging all the startups that are affiliated with BC alum, it's just super encouraging because I did feel early on in my career, I was a little bit jealous of like Babson or MIT or obviously Harvard because they had these strong, vibrant startup communities, and I was like, I want that too, and it's finally starting to happen. So I'm trying to do my part to help grow the startup community here at BC.
I would say very specifically, I think that the pre-health program at BC has definitely grown a lot. I remember when I first came in freshman year, I applied to a program called the Gateway Scholars Program, which is essentially a program where for students of color and or low-income backgrounds who are interested in the STEM field, they basically put them in very small classes instead of like the big intro lecture halls, in order to facilitate more, attention from professors and to be able to get more individualized attention, and is basically meant to help retain a lot of people of color through the pre-med track because the reality is that it's extremely competitive, and STEM is one of the fields that really bring up disparities in your upbringing and where you went to school prior to college. So I applied to that and I got rejected from the Gateway program despite me fitting all the criteria for the type of student that they want. And I remember calling, bargaining, trying to get my way in, saying, yo, please let me in, like if I get a C in chemistry, you can kick me out the program. Like I was trying to I was asking them, why is it that I was not accepted? And they brought up my SAT scores and my AP scores. I got a 3 on my AP science exams, and my SAT score was not that great. And so, a lot, looking back on that, I realized, a lot of those things are out of my control because, the high school that I went to, I did not go to an elite high school. The high school that I went to, up until that time, no one has ever gotten above a 3 on an AP science exam. So, it kind of, by them rejecting me from that program, it was more like a sink or swim moment. Like I felt like I had to, figure everything out on my own. Like I was taking classes in the big lecture halls with all other students. And, a lot of times I did felt that imposter syndrome, feeling like, I didn't come from, the best high school. And now I feel like I have to, work 10 times as hard and I'm still, not where I want to be. So that really forced me to essentially just, swim or sink, right? And so, now the Gateway program has changed a lot. Like now, I don't think they don't, take into account, whatever your standardized exam scores were before coming in. Like now if you fit the, criteria, they'll let you in. And I feel like that's very important at, being able to keep, pre-health students of color through such a difficult career track. So definitely a lot of growth in that area.
I'll go. I've only been an alumni for 1 year, but I would have to say, like, just looking back on like my time there are the student formation programs. And so whether that's like support groups for first year students of color or for first year like women, like BC does a great job of infusing the student formation programs that they have with the Jesuit mission. So moving folks to consider like what are their passions, what does the world need them for, like what do they want to accomplish in their 4 years, and making you ask those questions in the beginning of your college career was so crucial. I think looking back like on my first year like at BC, I was really lost. I took that economics class, like I said, mentioned, struggled through that. I thought I was going to be done right after my first semester. And if it weren't for a few of those programs, whether it be the Freshman League, which is a mentorship program for first year men, without that, or without Learning to Learn's dedicated intellectuals of the people group for men of color, without those two programs, I don't think I would be at BC for the remainder of my tenure. I don't think I would have followed my passions. I think I would have just stuck to a little box, done my 4 years, got a degree in something I didn't want to. And with those programs, I think a lot of people can attest to that. Like, they really push you on a path of discovery, of questioning, inquiry. And yeah, I think Boston College does a great job of infusing those programs with vibrancy, life, in a direction that are sometimes lost in other programs at other schools.
I mean, I would just say, I agree with what everyone said. What I also love about BC is just the athletic department, how far they've come, specifically for women's sports, which is obviously a big deal for me, right? I remember we used to play, so when I went to Boston College way back when I first got there, we used to play in the power gym. I think the power gym still exists, right? It's like the practice gym now, but that's where we played our games. And then the men had the big gym where you play hockey and all that stuff. And so we fought for years to go from the power gym to the big gym, and we finally made it. And I think the power gym is not even a thing anymore. Like, that's not even a thing. We would never consider the women's team playing in those gyms anymore. And so I feel like we've really done a good job at moving us along. We still have work to do. There's always work to do. But I love to see the incremental progress. I feel like that's been huge and beneficial. The other thing I would add is just around diversity and inclusion. I go back to that. I know Professor Claire tells me that her class, diversity and inclusion, the multicultural studies class, was around when I was there, but I don't remember that course. And now there are two of them. And so for me, that is a big deal to have two multicultural study courses, right? Kind of offered to students. In my opinion, I feel like every single student, as well as every single faculty member, should be going through some of these courses so that we have a better understanding of what the world looks like around us. But I do think that we are making progress in those areas. Still work to be done, but I believe we're making progress.
Yeah, just to kind of wrap up that point, I think even in my 4 years here at BC, I've seen a lot of change. I myself would class myself as someone who came in and really felt impassioned to make a difference, and also just really be a part of the community. Again, kind of to reiterate a point I made earlier, but I think that having students so involved like they are at BC, you know, of course, it sometimes comes with students taking on a lot, but at the same time, I think that those students are really just passionate about the community, and I think it shows. And I think that's one of the greatest things about BC is just how passionate the students are about the community and wanting to see that change. And I think that push for change is really a sign for that. And I think, you know, I do think that part of the administration is really improving in their transparency. There's been a lot more reach out to students. There's been a lot more talks with people like VP Mogan, previous VP Joy Moore, Akuasar. So just having those kind of spaces, and also having a lot more engagement in terms of that, you know, hosting UGBC roundtables with, town halls with administration, having racial justice forums, things along those lines. I think BC has really showed that they're making an effort in improving, and that they're moving forward. Also, just on a note to answer one of the questions in here, because this is in a way something I think that Boston College has improved on. So one of the questions is, does minoring at CSUN prepare you for a job in business? Unfortunately, I don't think any of our alumni are going to be able to answer that, because the minoring at CSUN program is actually very new. If any of you can, please correct me and jump in. But yeah, so the minoring at CSUN program, I think, well, it's not really a program, but just the ability to minor in CSUN is actually a very recent push in at BC and is a recent program or initiative. So I am not sure if, I think class of 2020 might have been the first year that was able to graduate with a minor in CSOM. But I think it says a lot for how we're starting to open up more. So another aspect of the Carroll School that is now available to all students rather than just CSOM students is sophomore accelerator, or career accelerator, as I think it's now called, which is an amazing career opportunity I would offer any student. I took it myself and it was a really great course. It covers everything from what is formal business attire, what is business casual, to how to create a resume, how to create a cover letter, and networking. So it's an amazing course. So in that terms, just opening up, and I can't say too much on whether it'll help you find a career. I think it will, just based on the resources in the alumni network available through the entire Boston College alumni network, but also through CSOM specifically. There's a lot of resources there to find careers, but I can't say we have too many testimonials at the moment since it's very recent. I don't know if any of the alumni want to correct me and did have something to say on that. But if not, we can move on. Great. So another question from the chat is, what is your favorite thing about living near Boston?
Everything. I mean, the list goes on and on. The restaurants are awesome. You can live right in the city. You can live in the suburbs. All the great colleges are right here. We have the best hospitals on the planet. I mean, the list of things that Boston and the surrounding areas offers is a lot. I live right around the corner from where the Patriots play. I mean, yeah, there are lots and lots of pros. The cons, and I know you didn't ask us, but the cons are it's cold. It's really cold. I've lived here all my life. It would be nicer. The one thing that I would love to see is the weather change, but I think it's changing anyway, just as a result of global warming. So that's a thing. But Boston offers, I can't think of a better place to be. To be perfectly honest with you, Boston and the surrounding towns offer a lot. There's something probably for almost everyone in this city. But again, I am biased because I've lived there my whole life.
I'll just quickly add the energy in the city. I've been in the Fenway area the last 8 or 9 years. So right on the cusp of like the city, but also the suburbs. And it's just when the students are here, yeah, it can be chaotic, but there's just, you can't help but get excited, get motivated to do whatever it is that, you know, you want to. Maybe it's go out to get food. Maybe it's there's a park 2 blocks up from me called Clemente Field. And what was really cool to see was, you know, throughout the pandemic, people that either weren't working out before or who were using gyms, everyone kind of congregated on the field. And so there was just this like natural community that kind of sprung up as a result of the pandemic. But the fact that it's 2 blocks away from me, if I, oftentimes when I was working downtown, I would walk back from work and it took 45 minutes. I mean, that's what's so great. You know, I love my dad was born in Brunswick, Georgia, and then moved to New York. My mom is from Newark, New Jersey. So I spent a lot of time in New York, in that area, tri-state area. And I love New York. Almost moved there a couple of times. It's just so massive. Boston, you can walk anywhere. And it's funny because you hear people say, if you're in Fenway and they're trying to get to South, well, not the South End, we'll say South Boston. It's like, oh, it's so far. When you take a step back and you look at it on a map, it is around the corner. And so it's nice to be able to access the different parts of the city. If I want to pop over to Dorchester, if I want to pop over to Roxbury, if I want to get to the South End, I can walk, or it's a quick either train or Uber or Lyft right away. So that flexibility to get around the city and experience different things and not have it take up your whole day, that's one of my favorite things about Boston.
So
I've lived here my whole life as well, except for the 4 years I basically lived in LA. I will say, aside from what everybody talked about, Boston being great, in terms of the people, I would say people in the East Coast, New England, Boston are very honest people. Like, just sometimes it's brutally honest, but I would say honest in a way that they'll tell you exactly how it is. Just because I've lived in LA for 4 years, I was like, wow, there's a huge difference in the type of people that live in Boston and the type of culture that's cultivated here. So aside from all the fun things to do, I would say that's something that I've really recognized living, out of Boston for 4 years.
So I'm from New York City, so we kind of have like a little bit of a rivalry with Boston. But one thing that I really like about Boston is that it's a really clean city. But then again, like any city is clean compared to New York. But one thing I very specifically like about BC and Boston, so BC is technically only half of BC is in Boston, the other half is in Newton. So it's kind of a little bit outside, like suburban-ish. But what I really liked is that I grew up in a city my whole life. I didn't want to go to a school that, was in the middle of nowhere, but I also wanted to go to a school where I would have like a traditional college experience with like a closed campus, D1, big football game, football tailgate, all that whole college culture. I wanted that, but I also wanted, access to a city. And if you really think about it, there's not really that many schools in the country that offer both of those things. So I think I was really grateful for that experience, being able to have that very traditional college experience, while at the same time being able to access a large city that's right there basically. So
Yeah, I can. Oh, sorry, Mike. Did you want to?
Nah,
Okay.
it's all good. All you.
Yeah, I mean, I was just you guys hit on basically all the points I could think of. So just echo that. I am actually gonna toss the next question to you, Mike, since you were an RA for for the MLE floor. So can you talk a little bit about the multicultural LLC housing? And obviously anyone else who wants to jump in, feel free, but I just know, Mike, you have some experience here.
Definitely. Yeah, so the multicultural learning experience the LLC it's something for first year students. There's 2 floors. There might have been more floors added since I've left, but it's a great program because like coming in as a student of color, like Boston College can be really shocking as being a predominantly white institution. And so the floor was a space for myself, my friends, and like so many other people who like just gravitated towards the floor to just exist, talk about social issues, talk about your BC experience in a way and in a space that's safe and empowering. It's not every day that you're going to be able to go to class, come back, and then be surrounded by people that look like you, that have an understanding of like where you're coming from as a student of color, and not having to explain yourself like when you come home to your room or your living community. And beyond that, you get to go into Boston, do other events, like whether it be like going to like schools like BU, Boston University, Northeastern. We did a lot of like expeditions into Boston, so as a community. And so not every other floor is able to like have that safe space as a student of color, but also to like get extra activities like to go on to as a floor community, whether it be in Boston or in like Newton as well.
Great, thank you so much, Mike. I'm not sure if anyone else wants to hop on that. But if not, I think we'll move to what is going to be our last question of the night. So Joseph, we're finally coming back to you. Thank you for being so patient. So if you were to become a freshman tomorrow, what would you do differently in your BC journey? And I'd love to hear from everyone, just because I'm sure you all have great advice to give.
Two things for me. I would have, I think, continued to play football all the way through. That's just like a personal, I would have loved to see how that played out. The flip side of that was it helped me stopping when I did as a freshman, helped me adjust to kind of real life and do it early. And I still have friends that I played with that are still adjusting. Like they can't let it go. And I'm happy that I was able to kind of go through that process and figure out what else was going to hold my interest and what else was going to get me excited and what else was going to get me motivated. That was just very helpful. That was one. The second thing is I would have asked for help more. I can be stubborn at times, and there were moments where all I had to do was ask for help, and I know somebody on campus would have been able to provide that support and guidance, and would have made whatever struggle situation I was going through that much easier. I would say there was a chunk in time, and it was right around the time when I stopped playing. Like that was probably the hardest point in my life to date, where I was going through this transition and it was impacting the rest of my life, whether it was hanging out with friends or schoolwork. And so just taking a step back and raising my hand and saying, hey, this is what I'm going through. I need some help. I laugh at myself now because that would have, I'm sure, solved or helped to solve a lot of the problems. And then the third thing would be just getting more involved. I almost was hesitant to get involved with certain activities, like the Marketing Academy, for example, was something I did later. Wish I'd done that freshman year. Getting involved with more of the AHANA programming that we had on campus, would have done that again freshman year. I think for me, losing, and I say all that because all of those places provide community. And I was losing such a massive community, right? And leaving a team that you spend countless hours of the day with. And so having something, I had friends on campus, but something that was mission driven or purpose driven that I could have gravitated towards would have been helpful. So those are my three things.
I can go. Honestly, I wouldn't say that I would go back to do anything. Maybe the one thing is to be less involved, contrary to what Adam just said, is because I did everything. Like I did a lot. I was a UGBC senator. I ran May's mentoring program. I was a McNear scholar. I studied abroad in Chile, Ecuador. I was a part of OLA for 3 years, freshman formation program, 48 hours leader. I did a lot. I felt like a playground there at BC. I felt like I was so deprived in high school, going to a predominantly white high school, Jewish community, that this was something that I wanted to do everything. I did a lot, and looking back, I wish I had done a little bit less and just hone in on the things that really spoke to me, that I was passionate about, and maybe focus on those things, because I jumped a lot, and granted that gave me a lot of different experiences, a lot of different perspectives, but if I could go back, I think I would do a couple things less.
Lisa, I love the playground analogy. I'm going to steal that, just so you know, so thank you. To Lisa's point, I don't know if I would have done anything differently necessarily, because I thoroughly enjoyed my Boston College experience. I had a lot of fun. I made sure I had fun regardless of basketball and the rigorous travel schedules and all the classes and all that fun stuff. But I do wish I had just maybe slowed down a little bit and just to take it all in, right? I don't think I realized the power of Boston College in all that it had done for me or was doing for me until I was gone, if that makes sense. And then all of a sudden I got to Fidelity and people were like, oh, you went to Boston College? You got your master's from BC? I'm like, oh, I didn't even realize it was that big a deal. But yeah, I did. I don't think I just, gave myself enough credit for having to do all the work, because there was a lot of work. So now that my daughter, she's a 21-year-old senior at UMass, when she comes to me complaining, I just look at her. I just look at her because I've done it. but I wish I had slowed down a little bit, right? Just to kind of take it all in and just appreciated all that Boston College had to offer me just a little bit more. But I definitely enjoyed it.
All right, it's between me and Eddie, but I'll go Eddie. I'll steal Angela's point as well, like slow down. And I think looking back on it, like our like college experience, the class of 2020 was like cut short with COVID and everything. And I was also like one of those people who like was over involved. I didn't really have time like to prioritize myself and my friendships and just having good experiences until I think like senior year. I was like, let's go. Like I'm having a good time. I'm gonna take the classes I want. I'm gonna go into Boston and I'll figure it out later. And not always the best strategy in terms of like schoolwork, but senior year I had a great time. And I think just slowing down and being patient with myself and not pressing myself to do every single thing like on time or like go to this event or help this person, but really take time for myself so I could slow down and be present with people and be present with what I wanted to do myself as well, like my head, like be present with your brain, like reflect. And that's something BC is always gearing you to do. But I also think there's a culture of over involvement, busying up your schedule, like whether it is like with Adam doing football, like that was taking up all your time, Angela with basketball. Lisa, you said too many things to name. I know Eddie was also super involved. And I think what sometimes missing is like that chance to like take a breath and think about what do you enjoy? Like in your BC experience, what brought you joy and what kept you going? And for me, like that was one, like just building community with people, whether it be through student government or student programs for students of color. But it was also in just being Michael, being a friend, going out with my friends, like to restaurants, to clubs, like X, Y, and Z, whatever, right? So I think just would have just been me, like Michael, not just a Michael student. I'd just be a kid, like I think I'm gonna miss that time, right? So I think that's my answer.
I wouldn't say necessarily that, again, like I will go back and change anything. But I do wish sometimes that, very specifically, I kind of wish that I joined a dance. I tried out for a dance team freshman year. But I didn't do that because, I was always saying, oh, I don't have enough time with the whole pre-med thing. And to a certain extent, it was true. I spent most of my time at BC studying and in my one involvement as VP of the First Gen Club. But I do wish that, at the time I would have had the time management skills to be able to do something like that. Because I remember like, dance teams coming up from to Showdown, which is basically like the biggest dance event of the year. Just seeing how much those teams practice, I was like, wow, you guys are there from like 6 p.m. to like 2 a.m. for like 3 weeks straight. And I just remember thinking that how could I do that, as pre-med in these STEM courses? But I do wish that I would have, just gave it a shot and see, because you really miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Like it sounds cliche, but it's really true. So that's just one thing that I wish I would have done during my time at BC.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. I wish I had heard some of that before I was a freshman. I think one small thing to add on that I would tell really any freshman at any school is to find a study space as soon as possible, because I can't count the amount of times that I said I was going to get work done in my room, but I could probably count the amount of times that it actually got done. So yeah, try to find a study space, because for me, my room was not cutting it. I do see there are a couple more questions in the chat. Unfortunately, we're not going to have time to get to those, but we do, for the most part, have our emails in the chat or in our boxes. However, you can also email Aiden Henderson, who's had his video off the whole time, and he can help you direct any questions where you need to go as well. so that we can get those answered at a later date. But I just want to thank all of our panelists so much. Thank you for being here. I got a lot out of it. Wish I had been a prospective student who got to watch this panel. So I hope everyone enjoyed, and thank you so much. Have a great night.
Thank you for having us.